Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mack. Hey, Patriot, you like Q posts? We got Q posts. We got new Q posts. You know how I know they're new? They still got the cellophane on them. Yep, let's get started. 37:40, 9 minutes after the hour of 6:09:09. We get a Twitter status to Woke Society. Congrats on getting a shout out from Q. Woke Society says Q called this back in July. News broke today, and Woke Society is waking us up to 3389. This was a post from July 2019. This was July 9th. AG and Rogers meeting. Rogers being Admiral Mike Rogers. Durham and Rogers meetings. Why did Rogers retire? Why did Rogers visit POTUS at Trump Tower without authorization shortly after a skiff was installed? Why did select former ABC directors call for the removal of Rogers? Why did POTUS move his Transition Command Center base of ops from Trump Tower the very next day? Well, indeed, Rogers has been meeting with Durham, and we see over here this title from the Intercept. Former NSA director is cooperating with probe of Trump-Russia investigation. Indeed, he is, and he's doing that voluntarily, and this is all in regards to drumming up anything that would have originated in the Trump-Russia investigation. Of course, we ended up swinging that all to the Ukraine, but the original idea was that Trump was colluding with Russia, right? Why did Rogers retire? Well, he retired in May of 2018, and I want to point out that he joined a company. It's a private intelligence firm. They're linked to Israeli intelligence, and it's called Team 8. Oddly enough, Team 8 there, logo looks a lot like 8chan or 8kun now, right? Just saying. But of course, Admiral Mike Rogers, the 17th director of the NSA, I know. I wonder if it's relevant. Why did Rogers visit POTUS at Trump Tower without authorization shortly after a skiff was installed? Well, he knew all about FISA abuse, right? And of course, we're going to start seeing this play out now with FISA court judge Rosemary Collyer ordering the release of pretty much anything that would have had to do with this Carter Page FISA application. Rogers has a lot to do with that, and he was essentially racing against the deep state once he figured it out. And of course, they got onto him real quick, and he became sort of persona non grata, right? Anyway, so he knew that this was going on, and they had set up a skiff in Trump Towers, and skiff being a sensitive compartmented information facility, basically a really, really quiet room where you can't bring your phones, right? And he knew they were being bugged, so he went there to warn POTUS. The very next day, the transition team packs up and moves to chasing. The very next day, James can't shut his yapper. Clapper is calling for Mike Rogers to step down. So I think you see what's up, right? This was a race. And this Intercept article is from December 20th, 2019, posted at 3:17 p.m. I know. And I'm taking you about halfway down through this article. Rogers' voluntary participation, which has not been previously reported, makes him the first former intelligence director known to have been interviewed for the probe. He's been very cooperative, one former intelligence officer who has knowledge of Rogers' meetings with the Justice Department said. Fantastic. Let me finish you off with this here. Rogers is no stranger to the controversy surrounding the 2016 election. Shortly after Trump won the presidency, Rogers traveled to Trump Tower in New York, where he provided an unsolicited briefing to the then president-elect. Rogers informed Trump that the NSA knew that the Russians interfered in the election. According to three people familiar with the briefing, despite delivering what Rogers told a confidant was bad news, Trump would keep Rogers on as an NSA director while dismissing Brennan and Clapper. Back to the Q post. Q says something big is coming. Well, I would say Admiral Mike Rogers is quite big, right? Admiral Mike Rogers knows where the bodies are buried. He knows about the spying. He knows about the wiretapping. He just happens to work with a security company who just happens to have a logo very similar to 8chan. He knows all about 8kun. He knows all about what's going on, right? I would say Admiral Mike Rogers knows what's up. Now we get a Twitter status to the POTUS. He knows what's up too. The Democrats and crooked Hillary paid for and provided a fake dossier with phony information gotten from foreign sources, pushed it to the corrupt media and dirty cops, and have now been caught. They spied on my campaign, then tried to cover it up, just like Watergate, but bigger. Indeed, I do want to point out too, we have D, C, and H. Of course, I would imagine since Hillary is a normal name, we don't usually use that capitalization right there, but we have DC capitalized here, and then we have Dirty Cops, DC, capitalized here, as well as FD. Just pointing out for those of you at home paying attention. And while we're paying attention, let's pay attention to Eugene down here, who's a doctor. And when he's not busy saving lives and being a verified Twitter knucklehead, he's busy finding his way to the top of almost every single POTUS thread. Kind of like a couple of other knuckleheads named Krasenstein that I remember from back in the day. That was before they got caught and then booted permanently. Maybe Eugene's one of those Facebook doctors. Remember those guys? If I could get 1,500 likes, I could save this child! Well, Q says, do people really think this can happen with no consequences? FISA equals the start. Nobody is above the law, not anymore in brackets. Indeed, and Q has let us know that FISA equals the start. Once people understand what FISA was all about, the whole narrative is really going to open up. Now, I have a feeling there's going to be more to it there. I think Q is giving us more than we probably know at this point. But we do know that that really is the starting point. We already knew that spying was occurring before FISA, but FISA really seemed to be a turning point where they really were covering everything up, right? So I have a feeling there's another meaning there. But as we've heard many, many times, Democrats always saying nobody is above the law. How odd that they would use that term. Year of the boomerang, 2019. Let's move on. Oh, it's 37:41, 22 minutes after the hour of 6. Why are the two articles, being the two articles of impeachment, being held by Pelosi? Keep in mind, those are abuse of power and obstruction. Will holding actually impact the decision of the Senate? Well, we already knew that, right? And Q knows that too, saying no, it will not. This will get swatted down in the Senate like Dikembe Mutombo. That was probably kind of a obscure reference right there. Will holding actually provide a better scenario? Public opinion to Democrats? No, because if Democrats really want to impeach him, they're going to sit there saying, well, why are you sitting on this? Let's go ahead and move, right? I thought we were going to do this. They were all excited. There were a lot of people that actually thought that POTUS wasn't even POTUS anymore. Yeah. No, so that's not going to help their narrative either. So pushing it through doesn't help. Sitting on it doesn't help. Will holding actually sway select senators to change their vote? Well, I think there are some people that would like to think that, but at the end of the day, no. When blackmail and threats no longer work, how do you legally inject evidence, right? Why are the two articles being held by Pelosi? Well, that's a good question. What happens when the articles of impeachment are sent from the House to the Senate? Well, the Senate would probably block it, like we just said. Can the Senate conduct other business during this time? No, and that's really what this is about. This is just about parading that accusation so that it looms over the president's head all the way up to the election. Remember, almost everything that's being done right now on any side, whether you want to call it white hat, black hat, whatever, all of it's being done with 2020 in mind. What value might exist by holding these articles? How long do Senate impeachment trials normally take? Well, I think we see what's up, right? That's going to take us right up to the elections. What statements have been made regarding timing? Think fast tracking. What statements have been made by Chairman Graham regarding Senate FISA hearings and witnesses? Why is Pelosi holding the two articles of impeachment? So I think we see here the Democrats are in a bit of a pickle. If they sit on this impeachment, then they frustrate their own base because their own base actually wants to move forward with impeachment. They're frustrated that this isn't going through. And of course, the Democrats haven't educated their base that this could be the destruction of the Democratic Party if they actually push it forward. Because if it doesn't get blocked by the Senate, it will go to trial. And of course, that would be another mess too, right? So there must be another reason for sitting on all this other than just optics, because the optics are benefiting POTUS and not the Democratic Party, right? So I think this is a really interesting thread from The Last Refuge, who brings up a couple other interesting points as to why they may be sitting on this. I don't like gaming stuff out by thinking like this lawfare crew, but there is a possibility this impeachment could be a disposable first step. Call it impeachment 1.0. They use this impeachment to get the judicial authority to penetrate the constitutional firewall. Keep in mind, they don't really have the judicial authority at the moment, so they can go ahead and issue subpoenas or whatever, but they can't really hold anybody in contempt if they don't show up. A pending Senate trial gives them an argument in court for their pre-existing cases, and we already had a few of these, right? The real goal of impeachment 1.0 is the evidence they seek. Mueller 6E material being all that grand jury material. I'm sure there's quite a bit of opposition research and all that stuff, right? And I'm sure they'd love to get their hands on that right before the election. And then number 2, Don McGahn as a witness, former White House counsel Don McGahn. And 3, the financial taxes. The financial taxes thing, really they don't have any kind of authority towards, but if they could use that, they most certainly could spread it through the news and of course make a bunch of ugly stories leading up to the election. Probably wouldn't do anything other than just make a mess, right? These cases already exist in courts. Number 3 is less important. Yeah, indeed, they're not going to get them over the financials. They're just not. But I think the number 1 is really the big one, the grand jury material. Eventually, McConnell votes down the impeachment, but that doesn't matter. What the House really wanted was an interim phase to help get that 6E material, Don McGahn, etc. From there, the House assembles new articles based on the new evidence, and impeachment 2.0 goes to the Senate. Yeah, we can get all this stuff, and now we can use it as another reason to recycle this impeachment narrative. Because we already know it's going to get shot down the first time. This second time will buffer our stance. 2 benefits. A treasure trove of Oppo research for 2020. It's like an insurance policy if Trump wins again. And I think that's exactly what they're expecting, and that's exactly what they're trying to prepare for. Nadler knows what the 6E material is already. Nadler wouldn't be going after it if Weissman and crew didn't leave something in there for him. The 6E material is the motherlode of opposition research. FBI 302s, hundreds of anti-Trump witnesses, massive speculations and accusations, wiretap results, surveillance results, national security letter results. Yeah, it gives them a treasure trove to mess with because they can turn it around, they can alter things, they can kind of skew the narrative, they can get out in front of the narrative, they can waste a bunch of time and just murky up the waters all the way up to 2020. And like I keep saying, every move that's being done right now has 2020 in mind. All of it immediately in the hands of Jerry Nadler, Nancy Pants Pelosi, Lawfare, Fusion GPS, DNA, political operatives, and the Democrat 2020 presidential candidate. So that's a lot of ammo for them, right? Full Title I surveillance was done on the entire Trump family and administration for 2 years. Think about what was available for Weissman and Mueller to leave for Nadler and the DNC. Yeah, keep in mind, we were talking about umbrella surveillance. Nobody could get to Trump directly. So what they had to do is they had to get to people that were in his circle. This umbrella surveillance. I spy on you, but now I see you talking to 3 friends. So now I got to get a warrant on those 3 friends until I can lead myself up to somebody who knows the POTUS. All of it perfect for slow leaking to the media during an election year. Precisely. Impeachment 1.0 could simply have been the method, the legal pathway to get to all that information, thus holding the articles for a little while till the courts grant benefit from their existence within the 3 pending cases in early January. Now let me take you down here postscript. Don't forget, Mary McCord is with the Lawfare contracted crew working for Gerald Nadler on this endeavor. McCord is currently working for Jerry Go Nadler. Also, this approach would explain why Nadler dropped all of the other article stuff, which originally perplexed everyone, but stuck to abuse of power and obstruction. Yeah, when they realized that the first impeachment wasn't going to go through on its own merit, they figured, all right, well, we're just going to drop everything and make it look like we're not really backtracking, but we're going to hold hard and firm on this, when it seems like what they really want to do is get a little bit of access to that grand jury material. Both current articles are arguments for pending cases. In lower court decision on 6E material, the HG, being the House Judiciary Court, win was limited to material directly related to the Mueller findings. One of those Mueller findings centered around obstruction, the same as the second article of impeachment. Remember, obstruction and abuse of power. So HJC argues the Mueller 6E is directly related to their pending Senate impeachment case. Yeah, like I said, it buffers their argument the first time. Now we've got to get that material. Thanks for the reminder. So we should be able to get a good idea whether this is indeed their strategic approach based on how HGC responds to this. And this is in regards to application of the Committee on the Judiciary, U.S. House of Reps, for an order authorizing the release of certain grand jury material. So there it is. They want to get at that grand jury material. And of course, we don't want them to have that because that's going to allow them to skew the narrative. And like I just said, get out in front of the narrative. So there you go. There is some value that might exist by holding those articles. What statements have been made regarding timing, Q asks? Well, Q has mentioned it quite a few different times. This is a little bit from the tail end of post 3689, where Q says time, and then we have brackets. Ing is important. How many coincidences? Use of coincidences essential not to violate national security laws. We were talking about QAnon posting on a coon before mathematically impossible. We've seen all these different Q proofs and Q posts that have shown close proximity to the POTUS. Well, there has to be a sort of a level of plausible deniability right there, simply by showing all these different quote unquote coincidences between Q posting and then all of a sudden, you know, whether it's POTUS will tweet a few minutes later or maybe sometimes even just seconds later. That all has something to do with this. And like I said, keep in mind now we get this news outwardly that Admiral Mike Rogers is cooperating with this criminal investigation. Seems like the timing is very particular. FISA equals start. And here's another post from 3720 where Q mentions timing. Timing of impeachment vote revised 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is where we were talking about Barr getting interviewed on Fox, right? So timing evidently is very crucial. And like I keep saying over and over and over again, all these things have to do with the election. Timing of releasing, timing of grabbing these articles, timing of hanging on to this. All of this is play back and forth leading us up to the 2020 election. Think fast tracking. What statements have been made by Chairman Graham regarding Senate FISA hearings and witnesses? Well, he wants to call some people, and we're going to hear from him in just a second. Why is Pelosi holding the 2 articles of impeachment? Well, I think we at least have a slightly better idea now. Let's move on. Post 3742, 6 minutes after the hour of 7, we get a Twitter status to Methods on Twitter, who's also becoming a bit of a Q all-star. And by the way, I enjoyed you on Red Pill 78's show today. Thanks for that. And here is an interview with Lindsey Graham. We were just talking about this. Methods says worth listening to. Indeed. Check it out.
Comey said last week he was sorry. It was sloppy. No, Comey, it wasn't sloppy. It was criminal. I'm going to call every person who signed the warrant application. I'm going to find out why Brennan went to Harry Reid in September of 2016 to talk about the investigation. I'm going to find out why it took 2 years for Mueller to realize there was no there. We're going to look long and hard at FISA abuse. We're going to pass laws to make sure this never happens again. Accountability will only be successful if somebody gets fired, and I'm looking at Christopher Wray to fire somebody at the FBI. And somebody needs to go to jail, and I'm looking at Durham to hold people criminally accountable for the laws they broke.
Well, you make a good point, and we've got a graphic here that shows everybody who signed those warrants, and you're saying each of these people you're going to call down to testify. That includes, obviously, James Comey signed the warrant 3 times. Sally Yates signed it once. Yeah. You had Andrew McCabe, his deputy, signing it. Do we have that graphic? Sally Yates as well. All of those people you say you are going to call to testify as you continue to do this deep dive into what took place in 2016.
Yeah, there's 2 questions I want to ask these people. When you signed the warrant application, how much time did you spend trying to figure out if it was actually true? And how far up the chain did this go? Did President Obama know about the counterintelligence surveillance of the Trump campaign? Did Vice President Biden know? How much information was provided to Susan Rice? I want to know how far up the chain the investigation went. I want to know why so many people could sign a warrant application so flawed. So there's a lot of questions. I want to make sure this never happens again. To the American people, you deserve better than this. Every American should be worried about FISA. And to this impeachment debacle, to my Democratic colleagues, impeachment is a dead cat. Stop playing with it.
So there you go. Why is Pelosi holding the 2 articles of impeachment? How do you introduce the truth about what happened to the public? Well, maybe you just have to take it to trial, right? What value might exist by attempting to block public testimony or hearings? Well, I think that's exactly what the Democrats would like to do, right? They don't want anybody to actually tell the truth, especially not on live TV. Would educating the public through the Senate prior to Barr Durham Hubert releases be important? Yeah, I think it's kind of helps prime the pump a little bit. Look, I think most people are starting to really understand that this whole impeachment thing is a scam, but there's still a lot of people that hate the POTUS. And being able to see this on the TV, whether it's through something like C-SPAN or one of these outlets that is not necessarily pro-Trump, and having to be able to see it for themselves will really kind of help, like I said, prime the pump for the actual narrative. Then we can go ahead and start releasing things like indictments and whatnot. Narratives are created and pushed to prevent the public from discovering the truth. Enemy of the people, and I think we all know that that is the mainstream media, right? Let's move on. Post 3743, 33 minutes out to the hour of 7:33:44. We get a Twitter status right here to Kevin Mixmaster McCarthy at GOP leader. The FBI broke into President Trump's campaign, spied on him, then tried to cover it up. This is a modern day Watergate. Yeah, that's pretty succinctly put. Check it out.
Well, if you pause for one moment and you read this IG report by Horowitz, here's the FBI. They broke into President Trump at the time, candidate Trump's campaign, spied on him, and then they covered it up. It is a modern day Watergate. And you've got Democrats who aren't willing to even look into that. That is the area that we should be looking at. It's a modern day coup, the closest this country's ever came to, but the only way you can compare this to is Watergate. They broke into his campaign by bringing people into it. They have been trying to cover it up for the whole time. Now the question rises, just like Watergate, who knew, when did they know it, and how high did this go up?
Sounds about right, and I want to thank Adam Baldwin who shared this. It's actually page 171 from the IG report summary. It's listed as 177 on there. But the highlighted part here, the Intel section chief said that McCabe understood President Obama's request for the ICA to require the participating agencies to share all information relevant to Russia and the 2016 elections, and the Steele election reporting qualified at a minimum due to concerns over possible Russian attempts to blackmail Trump. Moving on to 3744, 34 minutes after the hour of 7. We've seen this meme before. Haven't you figured it out? It's not about Trump's corruption. It's about making sure you don't find out about their corruption. And there's little Adam Skiff looking at Nancy Pants Pelosi like, hey, aren't you going to do something? I don't want to testify. Do something. She's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know if to push it to the Senate or just leave it or just, I don't know what to do. And Elijah Cummings is like, you guys can do what I did. And Go Nadler over here is thinking about it. He's like, I might just do what you did. I don't even know. I'm just thinking about it. Sounds good right about now. Anyway, the title of the JPEG is with an EMM. We've seen EMF, EMP. Now we see EMM. How about that? Anyway, you get the idea. It's not about Trump's corruption. It's about theirs. Let's move on. 37:45, 4 minutes after the hour of 8. Spygate. Never has a president left office to collude with others to impede the next sitting president of the United States of America until Obama. Very true. And again, we see another EM, only this time it's EMB. Moving on. 37:46, 10 minutes after the hour of 8, we get a Twitter status to Ted Cruz right here. Cruz says, in case you missed it with Maria Bartiromo on Sunday Futures, the IG FISA report is a stunning indictment of the politicization of the Justice Department and FBI during the Obama admin. Check it out.
It's a blockbuster IG report. What struck you most?
Well, the Inspector General report is a politicization of the Obama Department of Justice and the FBI. The Inspector General report details 17 specific serious misrepresentations DOJ and the FBI made to the FISA court. By the way, the Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, was appointed by Barack Obama. And I'll give you the most stunning example the Inspector General uncovered. A senior lawyer at the FBI fabricated evidence. And here's what happened. So Carter Page is an outside advisor to the Trump campaign. He also is periodically talking to Russians, including some sketchy Russians. And so the FBI wants to get a wiretap on him. Now, an obvious question if you have someone talking to sketchy Russians is, well, are they working for the CIA? Because that's a very different inference. If someone's working for the CIA, then talking to sketchy Russians isn't that surprising.
Well,
he's doing his job.
The CIA.
Right.
Yeah.
So the FBI sends an email to the CIA. It says, hey, is this guy a source for you? The CIA emails back, and they say, yes, he's a source. The FBI Assistant General Counsel takes that email and he alters it. He types in the words. So CIA said, yes, he's a source. The FBI lawyer types in, no, he is not a source.
Unbelievable.
180 degrees, exactly opposite. He then sends that email on to the Department of Justice that uses that as the basis for a sworn statement to the FISA court to get a wiretap. By the way, the Inspector General report also talks about it. So let me just say,
that's unbelievable.
For the IG to have found this, you want to talk about good investigating. I mean, they dug through the original documents, and someone on the IG team noticed the original email from CIA, the forwarded email, and compared and said, wait a second, these words aren't in the first one. Take what the IG report says. When they questioned this Assistant General Counsel at the FBI, they said, hey, how did this email change? He initially denied it. He said, oh, I don't know how it changed, no idea. And then they pressed him, and then he's like, yeah, okay, I changed it. That is on its face criminal conduct. If you or I did it in a car wreck case, if you got in a car wreck and you were in court and you doctored fraudulent documents and submitted it to the court, you or I would serve jail time for that. That's senior leadership at the FBI. That's how badly they wanted to spy on Donald Trump and get Donald Trump. It is a horrifying abuse of power.
It's horrifying. Do you think people will go to jail?
Yes, I very much hope so. In this instance, this individual has been referred for criminal prosecution. I was encouraged by the statements that both Attorney General Bill Barr and U.S. Attorney John Durham put out, that they're continuing to investigate, that there's substantially more here. This was spying on the Republican nominee to be president. They sent in multiple confidential human sources wearing wires.
All before July 16, when they claimed the FBI counterintelligence investigation began.
And, you know, I used to be under George W. Bush. I was an associate deputy attorney general. I spent 5.5 years as Solicitor General of Texas. I spent a lot of time in law enforcement. I got to say, in any ordinary law enforcement, any responsible leadership, if someone had come in and said, hey, let's wiretap and spy on Hillary Clinton, right, or Bill Clinton, right, or John Kerry, it's possible, if there was a mountain of evidence and serious criminality, that you would end up approving that. But you better believe you would cross every T and dot every I, and you would press and say, all right, what's the evidence for it? What's the basis? Because you know it and get checked. One of the things that's so offensive, it's clear these guys assumed Hillary would win, which would mean there'd be no accountability at all. They could get away with this because no one would check.
While the Trump investigation was going on, there was another investigation going on into Hillary Clinton's emails. 33,000 emails gone. She was bleach bit and a hammer to get rid of her devices. I mean, if that's not obstruction, I don't know what is. And it was the same person, Peter Strzok, who was running the FBI investigation into Trump and running the investigation into Hillary Clinton. And we haven't heard anything about HRC.
One of the worst legacies of the Obama administration is the corruption of law enforcement and the intelligence community. And by the way, the big unanswered question is, how high up the chain did this go? We know that the deputy director of the FBI, McCabe, was read in and authorized this. We know the director of the FBI, James Comey, was read in and authorized this. Did the Attorney General, did Loretta Lynch sign off on spying on the Trump campaign in the middle of the election? Did the National Security Advisor at the White House? Did Barack Obama? Did Joe Biden? I got to tell you, in most administrations, if you're launching an investigation on a major political figure like the Republican nominee for president, your opponent, they would be read in. Nobody's asking those questions about whether Barack Obama and Joe Biden personally signed off on spying on and surveilling their political opponents. Not a single Democrat in the House cares about the answer to any of this. It's beyond crickets. You cannot ask about abuse of power or investigation. That's wrong.
So there you go. I know it was a bit long, but pretty interesting stuff. That FBI lawyer that he was talking about Kevin Kleinsmith. Now, Kevin Kleinsmith altered the emails in regards to the application for the Carter Page warrant, but it looks like we may have a similar situation with altering 302s with Joe Pienka. Now, he wasn't necessarily mentioning that, but I have a feeling that will be coming up too. But some very, very interesting stuff. Thank you, Ted Cruz. Let's move on to 3747, 11 minutes after the hour of 8. Anon says, toying with the enemy, don't get smug. And here's this little meme right here. And when you finish typing, just sign it Q+. I get it, because he's Q+. And you see that this JPEG is also EM with a small case B. So this was originally posted as a picture by Dan Scavino, who was challenging people to have a caption contest, and this was just one of them. Oddly enough, Q decided to take this one. So there you go. Those are your Q posts for now. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. Thanks to all of you who do that already. I am going to get out of here and try and enjoy some of my holidays. I hope that you will do the same. My alternate links are down below. You can check one of those out, and please join one if you like. All those are linked down below in the video description. My P.O. box, my email if you've got information to share with me, and my Patreon if you'd like to support the channel. All right, Patriots, I'm going to get out. Merry Christmas to all of you, and we'll see you next time.